finish. But the system did not let me do what I wanted to do. And I came back. Some other colleagues stayed there. So I had to go back. I really had to, because I could not make what I do. But that does not mean that I escaped. For the past 40 years, I'm still professor at the University of California, and I spend more time in Egypt more than I do in US. I teach my people in Egypt. I go also North Africa. I have the pleasure, this is an honor to be here in Ghana and more deeper in Africa, but most of the time, the African country that I visited, like in Ethiopia, maybe 10 years ago, and now in North Africa and several countries to help them also to do new manufacturing facilities in different. So what I'm saying is we have to look to make that really happen. We can dream, but not too big in this area, because we are not the known in our history to be the industrial continent. No, but we can make it. Look at the example of African that I have seen in the last 40 years in US. I mean, a very close friend of mine, Dr. Emmanuel Coffey, he's one of the highest rank, position in NASA Goddard Flight Space Center. I mean, they cannot work without him. And unfortunately, there was some issue that clearance and stuff to talk to us during this meeting, but his heart is with us here. And I love to have him here, but I couldn't but you see how important that person, even virtually, they don't want him to talk. I don't know the reasons, but what I'm saying is we always label African, whether I'm dark skinned or dark, but still I'm the African. By the way, whenever I go to a certain position or so, they ask you in US, the ethical or the race. And they have different things, but I can't classify myself except African. So when I put African, they said, no, you're not, black skin. I said, but I'm African. Really, this is true. And I insisted to do that. Because they have another one, not like unidentified. Or you say, why Mediterranean? I said, I'm not Mediterranean, I'm African. And at least in this position of my life, I can't force things to happen. I'm always doing it. So what I'm saying is, if you have that pride in you, that we can make it, we can make it. When you see what I said, 82 trillion US dollars of assets, I mean, you guys are rich. Can you imagine population if you're 1.2, divide the 82 trillion for each person? You're going to be rich. So why are we waiting? I mean, people are going to, as I said, looking at us to see how we're going to manage your money. And I think we can start with the issues that has been discussed here. I learned a lot. The agriculture sector. I mean, if I look at different, like the nuts or the cacao and so forth, and I looked actually yesterday, and the price, when you export those to India, I found that real number in their Chamber of Commerce. It's 200 to 300 times, percent of 2 to 3 times of the value that you send it. So the only what you do is just a very little processing. Why 200 to 300% goes to another end? Why not here back to the people? This is the best strategy being in manufacturing for the past 40 years. Don't start with a huge manufacturing venture. Go with what you have and make that happen. And you're going to see huge amount of money coming. In Egypt, there was some dreams for Nasser. I'm sure all of you know. I grown up with Nasser was the president of Egypt. And I admire him. I mean, since I was a child. I mean, he went to the point, I read a lot of documents. He built actually with the Czechoslovakia, the first airplane that looks almost identical to the Mirage. And you were developing that in the same time. But then, as I said, nobody likes us to be always going up. And somehow he was killed or whatever he died. And all our manufacturing facilities now for the Army is doing a GM Cherokee and refrigerators and LCDs. These are facilities that he built back in the 50s and 60s. So what I'm saying is, let's just go and use our resources that I feel it's almost unguarded, and use that with a very simple processing. And if we get 200% increase in the value back to the people, that would be great. You look at this in different things. In Egypt, for example, the new leadership, I'm not a politician, but I can see the differences. I mean, I'm old enough to see at least 3 or 4 presidents now, and I can see the guy has a dream. So, and also he has some advisors, maybe good or bad, but I saw something in manufacturing that I liked. For example, he looked at issues like what is the natural resources, what is the minimum we can do, and he can bring money, but he needs money quickly. Really, he needs, he's in big trouble. He want to make some impact. So he found the granite and the marble. You know, we importing from Italy, from Brazil, and so forth, and we have huge amount of marble and granite. And that's why the pharaohs, you know, they put all this status and stuff. And now he has 5 facilities generating money and a very little, just taking the rock, cutting that with saws, huge ones, and then exporting those to Europe, and also using for the local market, which is a huge market, by the way. And so I'm sure that you have even here a lot. You know, the other, I just mentioned something from the agricultural point of view, but you have many other things, maybe I don't know. I'll give you one example similar in Egypt. The limestones, they sell it by the tons, maybe like $15, I think, in a container or something. And then they send it for the Indian market, because, you know, they are great now in the pharmaceutical for medicine and stuff. And out of the limestone, you make those tablets, right? And, you know, always when you get the medicine, it's like, you know, 5 milligram. What is the rest of the 5 milligram? The whole 1 gram or 2 of your tablet? It's fillers, and most of it's limestone. Actually, limestone is great for us. I mean, it's actually can cure a lot of things in the body. I mean, learning from that. Can you imagine a container or 1 ton by, say, $20, and worth of that, tablets, that has milligrams, comes back to the country from India? We're talking about maybe not 2, 3 times. It goes to 200 to 300 times. If they can use that and put some investment, it's not a huge thing to take that and change it to a byproduct that he can actually, as I said, do it a semi-processing, processing, anything will do. That's now in Egypt, they forbid to sell or export any minerals without at least one stage processing. Phosphates, any other materials, even silicon, the sand. Now we are exporting sand. You know, I was in Malta, island of Malta, and it's just tourists, right? I mean, this is the only income they have in that island. And believe it or not, I make some connection with the government, and what they are exporting, sand. Because all their beaches are rocks, and tourists want to have sand, and it's extremely expensive. So I was there, and I asked one person in the government there, and he told me, we need sand. I told him we have a lot of sand. But again, the sand, the white sand or the black sands are very expensive. So again, the government went to the point, it was not regulated, it's not any sand can be exported. It has to be a certain classification. I think we should do that all here in Africa. So I think you have even more resources. Egypt is just a small part of the continent. And the resources as you go in the southern part and the mid of Africa, you're going to see even treasures. I mean, Egypt will be very, very small as compared to here. The one other thing that he can do, I read many reports about what are the obstacles against us as African to do a lot of manufacturing. One of which, at least, not in Egypt anymore, but the rest of Africa, is the power, the energy. And we are wasting our sun. I mean, the sun was given to us. People cannot even see the sun. Even if you have a cloudy day, still I can use the power of that. And in Egypt, they have invested in the last 5 years or so, billions of dollars, to the point that we have excess of 30 gig of electricity. Now, that's above the need of Egypt. Now they are exporting that to Europe. They just signed with Cyprus. So they can have cables now. So we are selling now electricity. So if you look, why I'm saying that, if we have an issue here, why not to do the same thing? Why go to the neighboring countries, and then if you don't have the electricity, then we can do that. One other thing you can do, why you, for one, I'll give you just one example. For example, a product like cement. We use cement in everything we do, right? And construction. Egypt produces huge amount of cement, whether it's a good planning or not. But now, the demand to supply ratio is about, I think, 5 to 12 or 6 to 12. So you have excess of 100%, more than the market can swallow. So why not to have in every African country, or at least region, we have the clinkers. The clinkers is the first step when the cement comes. It looks like small rocks. But that consumes huge amount of energy. Huge, okay? Electricity and azote and solar and stuff. So, okay, they are doing it. They cannot escape from the fact that they have done more than they chew, a lot. Why don't we have all the clinkers? So they use whatever they use in Egypt. And I'm sure, especially the political leadership now, very much pushing everybody to work with Africa. Just to let you a statement. Again, it's not, I'm not talking on behalf of anybody, but I'm just saying I can see the emotion. You know, like, you know, when they know that I'm going to Africa, they are very happy. You know, it used to be the honeymoon was during Nasser, but then became cold, but now the honeymoon is coming back. And so if you can look at the excess of 100% of production as a clinker, so you don't have to worry about the energy. Get the clinkers, small stones, put these grinder, you buy them, you know, in any countries, even like in China, very cheap. You put this and just, it's a big ball and has small balls inside, and hit those and get your cement. So now you have a little amount of dependency on the energy. Somebody else, African, have done the work, and then why don't we do that? There, they may not even know how to get rid of the clinkers, but they have to reduce it. If you know the cement manufacturing process, you can't stop. If you stop the furnace several times, it's gonna crack. They have to work. Once you get in, you get in. So can you imagine now, I need to build Africa. I need to do this. Why don't we have that integration? And as I said, I know in Egypt, the mood is to do things with Africa. This is totally, I know as a person, not as a, so everybody have that feeling, business people and otherwise. So I'm just giving an example. I don't want to have all the talk without the discussion and also the gentleman, distinguished gentleman here. So this is just an opening for me to say.
Thank you. I think the key words here are basically manufacturing is key, and then this integration across the continent for us to collaborate.
Manufacturing. Because if you are trading the goods, what goods are we trading in? We talk of value addition. The fact that it's originating in your country does not mean you are getting the entire benefits of manufacturing that product in your country or in Africa. And therefore, the strength of value addition is key. And to be able to add that much value, it requires a lot. A lot of things must happen to keep manufacturing going. And of course, in terms of the benefits of manufacturing, I think it's been overemphasized here. Job creation, modernization, technology development, everything goes along. Therefore, manufacturing becomes very important. I mean, it's a puzzle that if you look at the resources we have as Africa, you wonder why we are still not doing that well when it comes to manufacturing. If we have over 12% of the oil reserved, the world's oil reserve in Africa, 40% of the gold reserves in Africa, over 80 to 90% of the platinum we have in Africa, over 60% of the unutilized arable land is still in Africa. Then you wonder why we should be poor as a continent. It means we are so blessed with so much that we are unable to utilize it. The challenge is how do we convert them into something else? And that's manufacturing. So value addition becomes very key. But as I said, a couple of things must happen at the same time. Countries that have developed, because manufacturing requires long-term investment, you need to have stability in a lot of things to enable you to do big-ticket manufacturing activities. So here, macroeconomic environment becomes key. Issues of regulations, laws, taxes, these are soft side of the equation which we cannot gloss over. If you don't have proper policies that support manufacturing growth, you will have difficulty growing manufacturing, because the investors are looking long term. When they invest today, it's not like trading where you buy and sell, you get your margin, and then you move on to the next stage. Manufacturing, it matures over a long time, and for that reason, you need to have stability in a lot of things. And therefore, in Africa, if you want to really benefit from manufacturing, we must have stability in our macroeconomic environment across Africa so that we can actually do this business. We have a big opportunity. The opportunity is in the resources that we have, and also the fact that we are coming together means that we have a population to our size. We have the market to our size. Of course, population is not equal to market, because if you have low-income people, their consumption and ability to buy is lower, and therefore we need to grow that. But then the mere fact that you have population to your side means that certain basic items will still be procured, and therefore we need to manufacture and sell. Unfortunately, when you go to most African countries, like what happens in Ghana, most of our shops, about 70% of the products we are consuming are imported, and therefore we have a huge opportunity to turn this around and actually ensure that we have local manufacturing. So the macroeconomic environment is key, and then comes the next item, which we have is also part of the topic we are discussing, and that's the infrastructure. Infrastructure is key, and until we're able to develop our infrastructure to a certain extent, certain kind of manufacturing becomes difficult to have. Power is one of the key areas. Most African countries, except the Egypt, the Ethiopias, and a few others who have good supply of energy at competitive cost, most of us are struggling. In Ghana today, the Ministry of Energy says we have excess capacity, which is true, but what is the cost of energy? Very expensive. If you go to Nigeria, if you go to Sierra Leone, Liberia, and all that, they have a challenge with a consistent, reliable, and regular supply of energy, of electricity. And for you to attract big-time manufacturing plants, you need this basic infrastructure. It is key. I know that there are big projects that are coming around. The Graninga project in DR Congo, Ethiopians are also having theirs, Nigerians are planning something. When all this crystallizes, I believe that to supply the power needs of our people. But the point is that currently, Ghana buys energy at, 15 cents per kilowatt hour. In China, it's less than 5 cents. How can you compete when you are manufacturing with that high energy cost? And if in certain products, energy costs about 30% of the cost. If you take, steel mills, for example. And therefore, to be competitive, and the name of the game is competitiveness. The fact is that when the consumer goes to the market to buy, he's not looking at where the product is coming from. He looks at the quality, he looks at the price. If the price is good and the quality is good, he will buy, regardless of where it comes from. And therefore, for us to be able to capture our own market, we need to reduce cost of production. And energy is one. And all the other infrastructure that we've been talking about. Trading amongst ourselves becomes more difficult and more expensive if you don't have the infrastructure properly developed. If you want to ship goods from Ghana to Sierra Leone, the ship goes all the way to Spain before it comes back. So instead of few days of just across the ocean here, you have to wait for weeks and months. And all adds to the cost. And therefore, if your cost of production is high, your price will be high. There's no doubt about it. And if the price is high, you are uncompetitive. And therefore, to capture the market, you need very strong manufacturing, which is based on basic things being provided, key infrastructure, macroeconomic environment, and all the issues that helps manufacturing. Maybe the last thing I'll mention, it is manufacturing we are talking about, but a key element of it is also skills to develop and operate in the manufacturing sector. I was looking at some statistics and I was getting excited. The literacy rate in Africa is growing quite fast. I think in some instances we are over 70%, in recent times. In Ghana, we now have free education, so everybody is getting literate. So basic reading and writing, I think we are getting there. But is that what we need? It is good, but not enough. We need the skills, and the skills requires that we produce the human resource that has knowledge, scientific capacity, and technical capacity to help the manufacturing sector. This is lacking. There is so much unemployment in our countries, and yet our companies complain of lack of skills in specific areas. So if we really want to have that quantum leap in manufacturing, we also need to look at our skills development. These are all factors that are critical for manufacturing development. I think I will leave it here for now, and then wait for other questions. Thank you.
So much. I think those are really amazing thoughts. If you think about the statistic that you read there, of 80% of trade will be in goods. Just that alone is tying into what Prof said, indicates that we really have a serious opportunity. So Prof, my question to you is, if money was not an issue, and money is not an issue, given you already told us there is 82 trillion estimated in reserves on this continent, what would you do differently in terms of this manufacturing vision?
Okay, that's a great question, and tough one too. Let me just relate that to the last point that the gentleman just mentioned, which is the training, the skills. I was also astonished when I heard that, or I looked at one report, I'm hoping it's not even true, that the percentage of engineers or the more scientific oriented education in Africa as compared to Germany is about 3%. That's shocking. And I'll tell you something very interesting. If you look at opposite in Egypt, we have maybe 3 times than Germany. Does that mean that we are number 1 in manufacture? No, we're not. I mean, as compared to, if you put Germany, which is, I believe, in my expertise, they are one of the top manufacturing industry. But what I'm saying is, you need also to balance this. Again, I'm talking about, as an Egyptian African or African Egyptian. Why not to use the surplus, really surplus? I'm talking about hundreds of thousands a year. I mean, graduate, not hundreds of thousands, maybe 50, 60,000 in different disciplines. And some of them, they are unemployed. And now we're saying, okay, Africa, the rest of Africa, we are low in this. Let's just wait another 20, 30 years. And you are the rich guy that don't know what to do with your money and is sitting in the corner and millions of people looking at it. I'm going to wait another 20, 30 years, like most of the reports say, until we can do it. I can't. Why don't we integrate? That's the whole question. Let's just integrate. You as a private sector, this is the heart and aorta of Africa. As was mentioned before, yes, the governments, they have their own way of thinking and handling issues. There is the public sector, yes, but in anywhere, even US, what is the bulk economy comes from? Private sector. In fact, anything that's close to public sector is always losses. Like even the post office in US, like many of you, they live in US, it is actually a company. It's self-sustained. The government doesn't pay a penny to the post office. It's a US postal office, but has nothing to do with the government except they own it. The largest manufacturer of military, okay, it's called Aerospace Corp, all the weapons in the whole world, killing everybody. It's actually in one facility close to El Segundo in close to Los Angeles. It's called Airspace Corporation. All the rockets, all the smart bomb, right? It's a company. It's a Delaware company, LLC. It's owned by the government, but they don't pay a penny. They have to be self-sustained. What I'm saying, this is the responsibility of the private sector. So back to your question, I'm not trying to escape from that tough question. I'm just trying to relate. This issue of, okay, we wait until we get the new generation of scientific-oriented education. In the morning, there was discussion about, which is, I respect all opinions, why I'm studying geography, why I'm not to be just teach me how to be a businessman. Well, if you don't have those medical doctors to cure our lots of sick children and other bringing people to volunteer from outside, we need us to volunteer to our people, number one. Number two, I need an engineer to help me to do the roads and teach the next generation. Not just to teach engineers, teach people with no skills to have a skill. That's a job. We will have different mission as African than a developed country, or what they call a developed country. We are not just going to produce an engineer to be an engineer going to the site. No. Obligation of that person should be written in the curriculum at the university. You are different than the graduate in Switzerland. You are African. You have obligation. So your job is not only to go and build, but you have obligation every year to get me 5 skilled laborers. Otherwise, I don't give you a license. You have to help me. We are not in the situation like Europe or US or other countries. We are in a situation we know our issues, like, for example, the infrastructure. I hear it all the time. And if I wait again for the roads to be done, I mean, we're dreaming that for, 100 years, then the money sits in the back, the 82 trillion going to be stolen. So what we do, I mean, we have to do the best out, like 2 countries close to each other. Unfortunately, I don't know that much about, issues here in Africa, but maybe Ghana and the neighboring country, maybe they have some agreement, so we have a connection. Or we go step by step. Don't you think about issue about having the money to do the infrastructure? I don't think, at least my opinion, it is not the case. The case that anybody outside Africa, this is where the money is. I need that to be always the giant, as we call him. I want it to be at least half asleep. I don't want him to awake. That's going to be a disaster for many people, many countries. This is where I get, I heard some TED, lecture, the TED series. That was a real report. That I don't know how many billion per year euros goes to France until today. I don't know how. That person was talking. But I'm just saying, if we have a road, as always they say, the Golden Triangle or whatever, the triangle between South Africa, Egypt, and Rabat and Morocco, and in between, can you imagine the amount of trade that we will have? We'll have huge amount of movement of things. I don't have to depend on the sea or anything, or air. And this is actually, just to give you an issue related to that. See, manufacturing, as I said, in our stage, we are in KG1. We wanted to be serving the demand of the market first. We're not gonna, I don't believe that I have to do solar cells now. I need it, but not the point. But I need to do some tools to let me go quickly and guard this money. And one of the things I would like to see is to have, for example, the roads. The roads has to be done by us. And how can we do that? By our resources. There is issues in political issues. As I said, I'm sure there is a pressure on the top of governments because other people don't want you to do that, because this is going to be a nightmare. Once we have the roads, the network is here, And one of the experience-wise, in Egypt, the last 4 or 5 years, there is actually huge amount of roads. Actually, I have in a week or so a conference, press conference with about 100 reporters from different parts of the world, just talking about the impact, the economic impact and social impacts on the highways that has been established in the last 4 years. Egypt was number 181 for quality of roads. This is true. This is United Nations. Last August, jumped to 28, higher than many European countries. And if people are saying in Egypt, this guy, you know, he's not thinking. You're spending huge. Give us food. Don't give us roads. But you know what happened with these roads? At least 50 cities has been established. The land that was just a desert has a value now. People are buying it. Shops start to be built. It became automatic. Once you start that, you don't think about only infrastructure just because I'm going to spend money. You're gonna actually cultivate societies. You're going to bring jobs. Can you imagine if you have like a 1,000-mile, 600 kilometers of even roads? How many people are going to work in this? Put in the subways, the asphalt, and so forth. How much you're going to gain out of this, of societies built around that road? So what I'm saying, in addition to the ease of movement of goods within the continent, but also we are gaining what? We're gaining a fringe benefit by building our societies and bringing the people economical, level to be higher. Again, the education, and I'm not against what has been said, but needs to have the different scientific, engineering, and so forth. And also, we are, as I mentioned, Africa is different. We have to have more work than many other continents if you want to move quickly before the money goes. So what I'm going to do, I have to divide my intention not only to have a bachelor's degree, because in Egypt that's a big problem, the social issue. If you don't get a degree, 4 years college, and you do an institute, no, you don't like that, or diploma. I think the focus here, part of it will be the leaders to lead the laborers and the crews, and also we have to have the academia to be involved with the government, to have institutions that will help plumbing, electricians, and so forth. We have to generate our own trained, skilled laborers before we say why we have a problem with manufacturing. And this is not new. I mean, many other gentlemen and ladies has spoken about that issue. But let's just, since I am an educator for 42 years, I'm just saying that it is the responsibility also of the universities and the governmental institution that they have to help in that. And the government and even the presidents had to be advised that this is essential. And I'll give you just one example. There is a large contractor, and still now a company, because now it became a government, Osman, or Arab Contractors. And that time, that person who passed away, Osman, he was visionary back in 50s. And he by his private money, established a labor university. So they make the people feel good. You're a labor, but you're graduate from university. It's not for engineers. This is for laborers. And they give them a huge certificate. They stay not 4 years. They stay for 6 months, depending on the specialty. And during this 6 months, they are not sitting in a chair. Their jobs is to take the essential fundamental thing 1 week, and 1 week they are working under supervision. And without it, they cannot pass. So 6 months, you get a foreman. And in the same time, there is income. So that person who has like 5, 6 kids still can learn and has also money and can feed his or her family. So I think also, if you think about it from the global point of view, again, you need your heart and to be inside that issue, and I'm sure all of you has that in your hearts. If you think about the private sector, and private sector also is a victim, because you want to do things. You have money already in the market, but you lose sometimes. Why? Because I don't have the tools. So if we think, if you look, not a private, but if you as a private sector think, you know what, in all my sector, I'm going to talk to different people who are large or medium size, and I'm going to do the institution private. It's not by fees, it's not for profit. It's actually my profit will be the people or the labor or the skilled people who are going to come, and the fees for me is to have with me a contract for 2 years, and then you're free to go. Because even if you let him go from your business, you know very well he's going to serve Africa. So it doesn't really matter. You're still also getting your money back. I mean, globally. So I think that issue is very important. And once you do that infrastructure, as I'm borrowing that from a gentleman from the morning, the infrastructure as an infrastructure, physically, tangibly, and the infrastructure of the people, which is even more value. So if I have this too, then I'll be great. The second thing, or one of the things also, as I said, the trading. Also another gentleman was talking about, you know, he has honey, he want to trade that, you know. Why don't we also try to see this as an example? Like in Egypt, I'm giving just the example of Egypt. So the clinkers comes here, less costly to do energy because we have that issue, the uncompetitive. By the way, if they get it for uncompetitive market for energy, you're going to be competitive. If the other countries did not take that opportunity, 100% you'll be competitive. Because you need just an engine to hit that small rocks. Then you can actually export it to that, even between us. There is nothing wrong that one state like Ghana versus Congo, and this makes money, and that competition. The competition is very healthy. We are not trying to abuse each other, but there is no, I mean, if we, all of us, somebody will get the 82 trillion and give everybody $1 here, nobody gonna move. So the competition is very important, very healthy. And we saw, as I said, Rwanda and other countries that I heard of, even in Ethiopia when I went there. So they are growing. The issue, by the way, is not only the hydro energy. You know, like in Egypt, by the way, they spend billions. And that's unfortunately was also several loans from the IMF. But for some reason, lucky enough, that there was market and shortage of energy around the neighborhood, Arab neighborhood, and also Europe. So now, yes, it was costly, but it was not just the high dam, but through the regular way of doing it. So I think the opportunities are there. And always, you have to understand also, I like some of the discussion here when they say that the Europe or U.S. and so forth, they look at you. You don't want you to get everything, you know, to be very successful. That's true, which is fine. I mean, we don't have to cry. You know, you always, what they can do is just try to dictate some policies here to help. You know, I hate when I hear, oh, this illegal immigrant, that's why the H2020 program, sorry, this is also European funded, but, and always, oh, African is crossing, they're killing, they're doing. I'm sorry, you owe me few hundred years. You crossed without any legality. You came and killed me, you took my resources, and you left. And I did not have the opportunity to talk. So you pay some of that. If some people left, in my opinion, I'm sorry, maybe this is not the appropriate way, but for me, I get so angry because you came by thousands not to help me or find a job. You came to take the jobs and the wealth, and you left. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents.
Prof, I think with your 42-year experience, we could listen to you forever.
Thank
My
you.
bosses are beginning to text me saying it's time, it's time.
Yes.
But can I give Mr. Said at least some closing remarks? My question to you is, just in 2 minutes, from what you now know, if you could redo education for young African minds, what would you expose them to? When you think about this whole thing of manufacturing.
Well, I think the starting point to be something that hammers on attitudinal change, the soft side of the education itself, because our attitude is critical. No matter the skill you acquire, if you don't have the right attitude in the workplace, you can't develop yourself and you can't contribute to the company that you're working in and the development of the country. So I think that is critical, and we have to emphasize on that. But then the issue of education is education that is the right fit for our development. One cannot point to a particular education, but then let's look at our needs in trying to resolve the challenges of our country and of our development. What are the needs? And in trying to resolve it, what kind of education do we need to be able to address it? In the case of manufacturing, we need practical hands. We need people who can work with machines, who can contribute ideas in terms of entrepreneurship, who can think fast, think ahead, and solve problems on the ground. That's what we need. I remember I was in a program in Trinidad and Tobago, and they have an institution that trains technical people. And they say that if you come from a university and you did engineering, they don't call you an engineer. Just because you've had a university degree does not make you an engineer. They have another school who takes about 2-3 years practical training. And in that institution, they have all the machines that is working, and they don't just simulate, they actually take jobs. So you go to their machine producing factory, and they are producing machine parts. And the people working there are students. So they have practical work to do. When they finish and they go into factory or to manufacturing, they have all the skills and they are working the next day. In their electrical engineering department, for you to enter, you must come from university. But they say you are not an electrical engineer. Go and work in the field. That department of the institution, they take on electrical jobs. So most of the big companies that are doing electrical jobs, they bid like normal, contracting work, and then they are using their students to fix it. So the person leaves that school or leaves that institution, he goes to the factory, and next day he's actually a supervisor who has actually worked with his hands. That's the kind of skill we need, and we need to have a system that produces that skill. Otherwise, we turn out large numbers of people from the universities, and then they are not fitting into our industrial development, and that is not good enough. So a combination of this is critical for our development.
Okay, so my university has a system where if the student does not produce something that society can use, they cannot graduate. Wow. That's the engineering department. So they actually graduate very few students because you can finish your studies, but if you haven't designed anything that society needs, they will not certify you. You will remain somewhere, I don't know where, doing what, but you got to find something that society needs before you can graduate. So that's quite awesome. So on that note, let me conclude proceedings of the day, but ask Mr. Frank or Mr. Nelson if they have announcements for us to end the day. What I can say is we plan to be back here at 8 o'clock tomorrow and start our official proceedings at 9, and we'll be ending again at 5. So we're looking forward to having you. So over to Mr. Nelson for announcements. You can even use that mic here. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening.
The mic is still off.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are grateful for our our participation today and the way things have gone, it is my prayer things will go further than that from tomorrow, especially our presence throughout the program and our continuing active participation is very, very vital, and especially for our sponsors. They are a bit worried about people signing in and leaving, which is a prevailing phenomena in summits and conferences these days. So we will humbly enjoin your continuing interest and cooperation and participation. We start at 8 o'clock with the tea available because a lot of us may come early and not really have our breakfast. So it will be 8 o'clock to 9, then we continue from there. Those of you who traveled, the logistics will be handled on the 4th day, which is the 22nd Friday with the UN people. So keep your patience and find a way of keeping your bills and your receipts that they have requested. So for example, the travel and fuel receipts, if you have them, you can bring them tomorrow onwards. Thanks very much.